Now let's take this application to the next level. I want to add a navigation bar here on the top, and there I want to display the total number of counters on this page. You have seen this pattern before. It's similar to displaying the total number of products in a shopping cart. So as we add products to our shopping cart, we can see the total number gets updated on the navigation bar. So let's go ahead and implement this pattern. Back in VS Code, let's go to index.js. You can see our root component is the counters component. So here's a visualization of our component tree. We have the counters component on the top, and below that we have the counter component. Now we need to change this structure to something like this. So we want to have the app component on the top. Below that, we want to have a navigation bar and our counters component. So back in index.js, on the top, I'm going to bring back the app component and replace this counters component with app component. Now let's go to app component. So app.js. What we have here in the render method is the default black banner that comes with React projects. We want to replace this with a basic Bootstrap template. I showed you how to do this in the last section when we set up the Vidly project. But let me quickly refresh your memory. So we go to getbootstrap.com. Under examples, if you scroll down, you can see various templates. I'm going to pick a very simple starter template. So we want to have a page like this. Now right click here, go to view page source. Under body, you can see we have a navigation bar, and next to the navigation bar, we have this main element with the class container. This is the container for the content area of our application. Now, we don't want a complex navigation bar like this. So let's go back here, go to documentation, and search for nav bar. On this page, if you scroll down, you can see a very simple navigation bar under brand. So this is the layout that I'm looking for. I don't want any links or drop-down lists here, just a simple navigation bar. So here's the markup. I'm going to copy this. Now, back in VS Code, we should create a new component for our navigation bar. So a new file. Let's save this under the components folder and call it navbar.jsx. Now, just like before, imrc on the top, and then cc navbar. Here in the render method, we simply return the markup that we copied from Bootstrap. We just need to rename class to class name, and we're done. Also, we don't need the state here, so let's delete it. So here's our navigation bar component. Now, let's go back to app.js. We don't need this markup anymore. Instead, we want to render our navigation bar. So on the top, we also don't need the logo. Let's import navbar from the components folder /navbar. And then here, we add our navbar component. Now below that, we should add our main element with the class container. And inside this element, we're going to add our counters. I'm going to go back to index.js. On the top, you can see the line for importing the counters is grayed out because we are not using the counters component here. So let's cut this from here and paste it in app.js. And finally, let's add the counters element inside the main element. Now you can see here we have a compilation error because of this red underline, because we're returning multiple root elements from the render method. So we need to wrap them with a react.fragment. So react.fragment, and then we close it here. Okay, beautiful. Back in the browser. So here's our new layout. We have the navigation bar on the top, and below that we have our counters. Now, we want to display the number of counters on the navigation bar. Here's our component tree one more time. Earlier, we passed the state of the counters component to the counter component via props. This is because we have a parent-child relationship between these two components. But as you can see, there is no parent-child relationship between the counters component and the navbar component. So how can we display the total number of counters on our navigation bar? Well, in situations like that, when there is no parent-child relationship between two components and you want to keep them in sync, you want to share data between them, you need to lift the state up. So in this case, we want to lift the state of the counters component to its parent, that is our app component. Now, both the counters and navbar components have the same parent. This is where we have the state, so we can pass it to all the children using props. And that's what we're going to do next.